Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of SJGames Live. This week, since it's coming up to the end of August, I almost said October. I'm really in the in the Halloween spirit. It's the end of October or end of August, beginning of September. It's kind of the back to school time of year, which I noticed because I live across the street from a school, and it's hard for me to get back to my home at this point. There's just lines of cars outside. So what we thought we'd do is focus on a few things here that would be cool for students going back to school and for people running game clubs or libraries at schools as well, which we get some questions about. We've gotten comments about that, tweets, stuff like that. So I want to go through a few things, some interesting things that are more kid focused or focused at people that would be aimed at families or even older students, people going to college, things like that want cool looking stuff, like journals and folders, things like that. Before we get started, though, I do want to mention we still have the Unnatural Axe pre-order up right now. I don't have it on me, unfortunately, anymore, but it's a big foam axe. If you want to check that out, check out last week's stream. If you're going to Dragon Con, I believe Steve will have the axe there on him. It's a really cool cosplay-sized Unnatural Axe from the original Munchkin game. They're being custom built to order. The actual pre-orders will be fulfilled sometime in November, I believe, but those are only open until September 7th, so get your orders in now for that. That is going to be kind of a one and done. Once these are gone, once this pre-order's done, that's pretty much it. They do come with a promo card as well if you're interested in that. Also, everything that you have here today in front of you is going to be available on Warehouse 23. I'll explain some stuff about Random Fun Generator here in a second as well. But we'll talk about that in a moment. So let's look at some of this stuff in front of me. There's a lot of stuff here. What I'd like to go through first is some of the games that we have, because one question we get a lot, we get questions from librarians and from teachers about what games are good for kids, how to get games, things like that. I do want to mention for people that are interested in that, like if they want to, if you're a librarian out there or you have a local library, check out your local library for board games. This is something that you see on board game group stuff occasionally, but really, I don't think enough people know to check their local libraries for games, because a lot of local libraries have games. Companies like ourselves, there's a lot of other game companies. We donate games every year to the American Library Association. They do a game donation setup where they get in a big lump of donations from everyone and then kind of distribute it amongst the libraries that are in their network. So if you want to check out what games your library has, they usually have a section devoted to it. Maybe not every single library, but if you live in a larger area, I know here in Austin we have a few libraries that have board games in them. And those are coming from the American Library Association. So I want to shout that out. If if you haven't checked that out before, that is a really cool program that they do. We donate tons of games to that every year, so that's something that's really awesome. Also, if you have a local game group, or not local, sorry, not any game group, but like if you're running a game club at a school, like a high school or something like that, if you're a teacher, along those lines, and you want to check out games like that, we might be able to hook you up. No, there's not infinite stock of stuff like that, but you can reach out to info@sjgames.com, and we may be able to help out with that as well. So we have been known to donate games to high school, middle school, elementary school game groups, stuff like that. So if you see something here you're interested in, or if you're just interested, we may not have this stuff exactly, but whatever we have able to donate, we try to help out schools in that regard. The games I have in front of me, and I chose for particular reasons. I think they were pretty good for all skill levels, or most skill levels, and generally the themes are going to be acceptable in a school setting. So for Munchkin, I went with Munchkin Tails. We've done an unboxing of this in the past, but Munchkin Tails is a Munchkin core game. You don't have a board or anything with this. You just keep track of levels with your paper and pencil. And the art is by Katie Cook. The theme is essentially animals. You've got a lot of animal themes, a lot of humans in like anthropomorphic animals, stuff like that. So very, general themes, not super ultra violent. There's a couple like aggressive things, normal Munchkin level things. I'd still recommend it for probably 13 and above, similar to our other Munchkin games. But nothing super adult in this game. It's really accessible. It's got a couple things. I think Munchkin does a few things really well when it comes to teaching stuff in schools. And I'm going to kind of connect this with schools and with lessons and stuff like that. Obviously, there's just leveling up. leveling up numbers, stuff like that. But also, when you're attacking monsters and things like that, there's an interesting, like, the level of cooperation and stuff like that. There's not a lot of games that do, like, there's now, you could do a full co-op game, but there's not a lot of competitive games that also have cooperation in them. So, negotiation, things like that. There's a lot of interesting elements that go into that. Plus, obviously, the addition of levels, things like that, has a lot of math skills associated with it. So this is a Munchkin game that I think kind of goes mostly all ages. I'd still, again, I can't really say it's for less than 13 simply because it's Munchkin. There's some crude humor in it, but it's not like super duper adult, I would say. This is one of the better ones. I'd say regular original Munchkin's pretty good for that as well. I think Munchkin Legends is also a really good choice because Munchkin Legends covers mythology and things like that. So if you're into teaching literature, things like that, that's a great one. Again, in that same vein, Munchkin Shakespeare is also a great choice. I think Munchkin Shakespeare, Munchkin Legends, and Munchkin Tails all have really good themes for the classroom, and they are also not very hard to teach. I think of all the games we have here, Munchkin is probably going to be the most complex, and it's not very complex. So I think this is probably one of the better themed games to get for that. So yeah, Munchkin Tails, again, these are all available on Warehouse 23, obviously. I wanted to mention that again, but I believe Shakespeare and Legends are also still available. So this is a really good one for that. Now, again, I mentioned that one's like 13 years or so for that. Mainly because of humor, though, not difficulty. But if you want to, like, maybe a little bit lighter, maybe 10 years or older, I'd say Hack and Slash is probably a great choice. Hack and Slash is a newer game that we just put out. And this is, again, we did a playthrough of this. You can find that on our YouTube channel, and on, I believe, Twitch saved the clip for that as well, but for sure on our YouTube channel. Hack and Slash is a pretty easy game. Essentially, it's a push your luck game, akin to Zombie Dice, but it has a little bit more going on for it. The only reason I didn't mention Zombie Dice in this video was mainly the theme. It's very horror themed on that, so I wasn't sure, school-based stuff. If you're okay with that in your club, great game to put in a game club or in a library. But if you want something a little more general themed, Hack and Slash is more fantasy themed. And the way this plays is essentially you've got cards in front of you, and in front of all players, there's different cards. Let me actually pull some of them out here. And I'll throw them in front of the side cam over here. You've got these cards. These are essentially adventures you're going on, and you will be using your meeples to represent your party members. Everyone has a set amount of meeples, and you essentially go on a quest by sending in the amount of meeples listed here on the card. That's how many adventures that you send in. And you're trying to roll, you get to roll 1d6 per meeple you send in, and you're trying to hit that number. So in this case, we're sending in 1 to roll a 2+. And if you do get it, you get this card, and it's worth 1 point. And you're trying to collect, you're just trying to collect all these cards, you're going on adventures getting points. And then, but if you don't roll that number, you lose the meeple. You have the option to try to roll again, but you have to commit another one of these meeples to the fight. So you have the chance of getting it, but you're also committing more than one meeple, and if you lose it, you lose both of them. So it's a pretty straightforward little system. It's a little push your luck game. Not very difficult to play. I pretty much explained all the rules there. The only difference is some missions are harder. Some might require 3 of your adventurers. Some might require 1 to 2. You may have to hit a specific number. You may have to hit like a 13+. Some missions get really, really difficult. But there's always multiples to choose from, so you might pick a harder mission. But again, if you choose a harder mission, higher chance of failure, which you could then try to fix by committing even more to it, but then you end up losing even more. If you've seen the playthrough, you'll know that one of us, either me or Jimmy, did that, and it didn't go well. It was me. I did very poorly. So, it's a very simple game, very accessible game. Theming wise, there's not really any crude humor in this. There's funny like puns and stuff like that, similar to Munchkin, like the names of those missions that I just showed off. Very cool I believe it's, this is Lar D'Souza art on this one. And just really open to everyone. Very simple gameplay, just dice, just meeples. If you can explain what I just explained to someone, you've got it. And I think even though it's a newer one, it'll fit really well into a game library like that. Now, these other two, I think, are probably the most accessible of the games here. This is something I would recommend as low as elementary school kids to teach, and that is Super Kitty Bug Slap and Munchkin Mighty Monsters. So Super Kitty Bug Slap's one of my favorite games to explain, and this one I can just throw out here and show you on the overhead. Actually, let me pull these away to give you an overhead shot, and I will explain it. So essentially what you're trying to do is match up with one of the things on your personal card. Everyone gets their own personal cat card. So in my case, I'm round, orange, and have a blue fly. Someone else may be square and orange and have a ladybug. And there's 4 different ones here. And essentially one person is flipping cards in front of everyone. And if something matches your cards, let's say I'm this this round blue fly, and my friend is square blue fly. If something matches on the card that's flipped up, we would both try to slap it faster. So it's kind of a game of speed, if that makes sense. So someone flips face up. This has a blue fly. I have a blue fly. My opponent has a blue fly. So whoever slaps it and grabs the card first gets the card. So it's a game of speed, but it's also a game of identifications of colors, shapes, and stuff like that, which is, I think, great for that level of kid. Like you're not having to do math, so quick math isn't part of it. It's literally just identification of the colors, of the shapes, and things like that. Plus, it's got really cute art, and it's a very simple game. I literally have just explained it. You have 4 cards, or up to 4 people can play. Like I said, there's 2 here, but you have up to 4 kids play. All they have to be able to do is identify if it has ladybug, fly, round, square, and what color it is. And you're just flipping cards until all the cards are gone. And whoever has the most cards in front of them at the end wins. If they slap one that isn't theirs, there's negatives to that as well. But it's a fun little speed game. I remember back in school we used to play a lot of speed games like this with just random decks of cards. In school, essentially when I was in it, we had a lot of card games that we'd play, spades and just random card games with decks of cards. I think this is kind of a way to do that with younger crowds that aren't having to deal with very complicated like trick taking things like that. This is essentially kind of a speed trick takey type of thing, and it's very simple, very great for kids, low cost, and yeah, super fun. The one catch with children is there are a couple cards in here that don't match with any. And they're kind of like the mean adult cards. I would just take those out for kids, just so they're, because that might be confusing to them a little bit. But I will also say this is great for adults too, especially if you want a game to play at a bar. Very fun. But that's not what this video is about. But I wanted to mention it because I feel like I do pitch this game as a kids game a lot. Very fun with adults. Whenever we've demoed this at retailer conventions and things like that, one of our most popular games on the demo floor, because it's so loud and crazy. I think Jimmy for sure has been to a Gamma show where we've shown off Super Kitty Bug Slap, and it's a blast, absolute blast. In the same vein as Super Kitty Bug Slap, this other game over here is I kind of want to suggest it for the same reasons. I'm going to explain this one a little more in depth because I don't know the last time we've actually gone through it. But Munchkin Mighty Monsters, I cannot close this for some reason. Anyway, Munchkin Mighty Monsters. So Munchkin Mighty Monsters is a game of number and color matching. So in the case of Super Kitty Bug Slap, it was more based on shapes and stuff. I'd say this is probably probably one of the easiest games that we have in our library, but still very fun. Mighty Monsters is kind of like the one half step up from that as far as difficulty. It's not very hard, but it's still a lot of fun and has some actual depth to it. The reason I'd say that this one's a little bit of a step up is simply because it has strategy to it. There's actually a level where kids might be able to learn to play this well. The cool thing about Munchkin Mighty Monsters is that instead of having someone win and everyone else loses, it's someone loses and everyone else wins. So it's also a very unique way of ending a game, which I think is really cool. So let's go to the overhead on this one, and I will show you guys what we're looking at. So, move those out of the way. In this game, there's multiple different suits of cards with different colors and numbers on them. So, like, for instance, there's a red suit, a green suit, a brown suit, a blue suit, a gray suit, and a yellow suit. And each of the different suits of cards go to different numbers. So some of them have, like the gray suit goes all the way up to, I believe, 12 or 13 on there. I don't see the 13, but I think there's a 13. So the gray suit goes up the longest distance. The yellow suit goes all the way to number 8, and it doesn't have the lower numbers, so it doesn't have like 1 and 2. The green suit, there's only 2 of them. There's a 1 and a 2. The blue suit goes a little bit longer, goes all the way up to, looks like 4 on that one. Yeah, so the suits are a little bit offset, and the reason that matters a lot is because in this game, essentially one person's going to play a card. The hands are all dealt out evenly. You deal out all the cards, and one person's going to lead with a card. So let's say I play this for my hand face up. The next person has to either match from their hand the number or the color. So in this case, they'd need to either play a dwarf card or play a number 4. So let's say the next person plays the number 4. The person after that then has to match the color, which in this case is now gray, or the number again. And it goes around until someone can't match. So if someone essentially doesn't have a match for the 4 or the gray, they would take those cards into the stack in front of them, and that's a bad thing. Every time you can't play a card and you have to take a stack in front of you, that's essentially a point to you. And those points would become negative. At the end of a round, once all the cards have been played, the person with the most piles of cards in front of them gets one of these. It's called a defeat card. And whoever gets 3 defeats first loses the game. And that's really it. That's the game. So it's about matching colors. It's about matching numbers. So very simple concepts, but also very important for kids to learn that type of stuff, I'd say. And these types of games, like again, I'm not going to try to phrase this to be like this is educational games necessarily. I wouldn't say that this is going to be like the classic educational game, but I think it does reinforce important stuff in the same way that classic games like I don't know, Skip-Bo and things like that you'd see in game collections in the past. I feel like these games do that and are a little bit more fun and interesting. So it's not just the simple matching colors and numbers. There's a little bit of a twist to it. There's strategy to it because you might want to change the color. You might want to stay in the same suit. Again, these suits are all offset. So if there's a ton of gray cards, if I switch to gray, it's like, oh, well, there's probably higher odds that people have more gray cards in their hands. If you switch to blue, there's only like 4 blue cards. So maybe you're like, oh, if I switch to blue now, I'll be able to they might not have a blue card to match that, So that's there's a little bit more to it than simple color and number matching. It's a really fun little game. Again, both of those are really low cost options, especially for kids games. But again, both of them work for adults. I've played more of the Munchkin Mighty Monsters and Super Kitty Bug Slap with adults than I have with kids, and we've all had tons of fun with it. These are 2 like permanent staples in my collection, similar to like Zombie Dice or something like that. These are very small, portable, fun games that you can take on trips with you, take on field trips with you, things like that. Also, it comes with some promo cards. I just want to throw out there that this is, I didn't know this was still in here, so that's actually pretty cool. You've got some fun little Munchkin promos. So if your kid's a fan of Munchkin as well, it's a great addition. Nice little fun extra bonus stuff. And one with the gaming stuff here, this stuff is all available on Warehouse 23. The next one I want to mention because, A, it's a book, and if there's anything that goes in a library, it's a book. But it's also getting a reprint, and we have a Kickstarter coming up pretty soon for its sequel, and that's Random Fun Generator. If you've seen us do Random Fun Generator games in the past, you may not recognize this version because the original one was spiral bound. This is actually a new edition that's coming, a boxed edition that's coming with dice later this year to stores, and it's a new perfect bound edition. I think it's called Perfect Binding now. Same book though. It's got the same stuff in it. It's a book of dice games. All you need is Random Fun Generator, a set of D6 dice, and you've got a ton of games. I believe how many games are in here? 26 games. So again, 26 games. You could throw this book in any game library. It's literally just, a thin book of games with a set of any dice, which again, you might have a set of dice. We also sell dice if you don't have D6 sets for some reason. You can throw them in there, and you have 26 new games to your game library. Super simple, super easy, super fun, and they range from really really simple games. Like we played, me and Jimmy played a lot of tennis again. If you haven't seen that, you can check that video out on our YouTube channel. We played a few of the different games. There's the Battleship game, I believe, is one of them. That's one of my favorites. It's a fun little combat game that's super easy to teach, but a lot of fun. Tennis, which is literally just rolling dice back and forth, simple game. Again, a lot of fun. But then there's some even more strategic stuff that plays a little bit more like a strategy board game. So those are all really cool, and this is getting a reprint finally, which we're really excited about. It was a Kickstarter originally, and we had some available, but it's going to be a lot more readily available now. So you'll be able to find this in stores. Again, also, we're doing a sequel, Random Fun Generator 2, which is coming to Kickstarter really soon. We actually have a Kickstarter landing page for it, so if you want to get an alert when it goes live, you can follow us on Kickstarter. There's a click notify me on that page. You'll get an email when we go live on Kickstarter. So that's going to be another big collection of games that Randy and Phil and Sam have been working on. Tons more games. Pretty much it's going to be a nice little collection. You'll have a little 2-volume collection to add. Again, you just need a set of dice and you're good to go. It's great. Really cool thing. I really actually hope that we're able to get these out to stuff like libraries, things like that, because this is, I think, would fit really perfectly in those. Again, it's already a book. It doesn't take up a ton of space, and all you need to work with it is a set of dice. So, very fun stuff. I'll show you an overhead real quick of it, just so we can, if we can, show what the pages look like a little bit. So you got, usually it's 1 or 2 pages worth of rules. Again, some of them are a little bit longer, a little more in depth. But again, like Backhand, that's the tennis game. Pretty simple little game. But yeah, great art by Lynn Peralta. This is one of the longer ones. Hexagon Train. So it's kind of like a replay of Dominoes a little bit. Deadly Dig. Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool stuff. So the last thing I wanted to show today is some supplies. So this is something that I don't know if a lot of people know that we actually do. I've mentioned it a few times, but yeah, these are just some actual things that you could use as school supplies. I know I've personally used these as professional supplies. We have journals and we have folders, pocket folders here. And these are available through Warehouse 23. These were used during Kickstarters for the pocket boxes and for the fantasy trip. So let's do the overhead on this, and I'll kind of show some of them off. A lot of the art is shared between them, but I can show off what we've got as far as some of the bonuses on a couple of these. So journal-wise, all pretty similar, other than the art. You've got the Illuminati on the back, and on the front, you've got classic pocket box art on it, and they're a lined notebook. Very simple, but they really work well. I use them for journaling and for like ideas throughout the day. If you use any kind of notebooks for ideas and things like that, these are great for them because they're low cost, cheap, and they actually have this back pocket that works for loose papers and stuff like that. If you write something like a sticky note or something like that, you can throw it right in there. And we have a ton of these. This art is shared again between some of the folders as well. Great for backpacks, great for pockets. These are meant really as pocket journals, I believe is what they're called. I love this art. This is so sick. I believe that's Necromancer. Some classic ogre art, auto duel. Got some black and white ogre, some Illuminati. This is super rad. Is that Boat? I think that's Boat Wars. That's awesome. And then over here we've got some of the folders, again, sharing some of that art. Very similar. These are just pocket folders. And I know, okay, this is super gonna date me here. But I came from an era right at the edge of where Trapper Keepers were super cool. So these really speak to me a lot because I always liked Trapper Keepers, and they're like graphic folders that you would put inside of them. And this is kind of that same vibe to me. It's got all these like really cool arts. Like the amazing art again from a lot of the same pocket boxes. You got the Illuminati stuff, classic Illuminati cover. This is one of my favorites. Some of the best art of all time. The original Car Wars, or not the original Car Wars, but probably the most notable Car Wars cover. That one's fun to me. Just like a car and a semi going through a wall. Necromancer. And some of these, so on the back we got the Illuminati, but a couple of them at the end here. So we have the fantasy trip as well, which if you're a fan of the fantasy trip, again, these folders work really well. again, school supply side of things, but if you're an RPG player, and same can go for these other ones, if you're a fan of RPGs, great way to store stuff, and for the fantasy trip, you actually have references on the back, which is an awesome addition. I love this. This is absolutely the best thing about this. I mean, the art is incredible. I do really like the spider art and stuff like that, but having reference material on this, so you can throw in your character sheets and things like that, carry these around with you from game to game, and boom, you've got all your references right on the back of it. Super duper useful stuff. Really love that, and I think all of these have that. So we've got the other fancy trip covers. I love that art, the octopus, and boom. Actually, they have different ones. That's really cool. So you've got weapons table on that one. You've got the experience points chart on this one, and you've got the list of options over here, which is like your list of actions essentially. Which I wish we'd known for our game, Jimmy. We wouldn't have had to print that one out. This would have been really useful. So this is awesome. So this has all the options for your actions. You got all the experience points, kind of like options, and tons of weapons, tons of equipment tables. But again, you can use that for anything, particularly good for character sheets, but again, usable by young professionals, usable by old professionals, usable by students, man. If you like this kind of stuff, if you're into the retro styles, that's why I wanted to show it, because I didn't know if a lot of people really understood that this stuff was still available. Sometimes when you release non-gaming material like this, it kind of gets released in like in a Kickstarter or something like that, and then it might get buried a little bit. So now you know that this stuff is available. It's on Warehouse 23 right now. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to show off. I wanted to highlight some of these things. Again, I wanted to stress to people, if you are a librarian or if you're an educator, and you want to check out more games for free, check out the libraries and make sure you're part of that American Library Association program. They do offer board games. We donate a ton of them. It's not just us. A lot of board game. I said game board. A lot of board game publishers are a part of that. We get a lot of questions, like questions about that from libraries, and that is the best way to get them is through the ALA, just because we donate literal like a pallet of games to them. It's a lot of stuff. So, so keep an eye out for that. If you're a teacher running a school club or something like that, you can let us know. Just info@sjgames.com. I can't guarantee anything, but if you can give us some information, we can try to see if we can help out with that. And if you're interested in some of these games, that'd be, just let us know. Yeah, these are great for kids, great for adults. And if you don't have a library near you, or you just don't have access to it, you can check out Warehouse 23 right now. I still think that all these are great options for pretty much any age group, and they're fun for everyone. That's the big difference. They're not just kids games. If you play this with your kid or with kids, you will also have fun as an adult. And if you play this with other adults, you're going to have fun with all these. I love all these games. They're a ton of fun. And I really have a lot of fun with the Random Fun Generator. And again, check that sequel out. I believe the first one might be available through the second Kickstarter as well. But if not, this is also coming out to retail pretty soon, again, with this new edition. So guys, I hope this... Oh, we got questions? Sure, yeah.
Someone asked for the age range on Random Fun Generator.
Random Fun Generator, let me actually check. I don't know if we have the suggested...
There's games for all ages.
Yeah, there's definitely games for all ages. I don't know if there's an official, like... I don't believe we have a specific... Yeah, it'd usually be somewhere down here, like 13 up or something like that. But I don't believe there's any content warnings on this. The reason we have it on Munchkin is simply because of the humor. It's crude humor, and the dice specifically. This doesn't actually come with dice, so.
Do we have the dice in the box version of Random Fun Generator?
I have the book. I don't actually have the box on me right now, but we can. We'll show that in another stream when it comes, because we'll throw that on the beginning of the next stream. I didn't even think about grabbing that. Was that Phil asking? No, okay. So sorry if Phil was wondering. Sorry about that. I didn't grab those before the stream. But I believe they're just a set of SJGames. Like they're not super crazy if I remember correctly. It's mainly so people can play the games. But we'll check that. I'll check those out and share. Yeah, you just need D6s for that. So any D6s work, but these will come with a set of dice. For that. Any other questions, Jimmy? Nothing else? Well, if you do have any other questions, just throw them in the comments below. We will definitely answer those if we can. And again, thank you guys for checking this out. I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend. If you're going back to school, stay safe and we will see you next week with some Car Wars content. So stay tuned for that. We're going to pretty much be starting Car Wars September at that point. We're going Car Wars a lot. So if you're interested in Car Wars, stay tuned. We'll see you next time. Y'all have a great weekend.